Javier tomando su agüita. Listo. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Good night to everyone. Today we are going to present our final project that is about ELA 900 machine. The group is integrated by Javier, Sharon, Santiago, and Angela. Next, please. Okay, so the proposed product to be imported is a small machine called ELA 900, which is a generator of hypochlorous acid water. This solution is a non-toxic disinfectant that eliminates bacteria, fungi, and viruses. Its uses are disinfectant, deodorant, sanitizer, etc. It is cheap and eco-friendly. Next, please.
Now, why was the product chosen? Well, we believe that this product is very important for the Peruvian market currently, due to being a sanitary alternative to rubbing or disinfecting alcohol, even gel-based alcohol products. The machine produces a hypochlorous acid, which is a substance stronger than alcohol itself, but also being a very weak acidic compound. The main purpose of the product is to produce a type of liquid disinfectant that we can sell to the Peruvian market. And seeing that we are still suffering from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and that alcohol-based sanitary products are still in high demand, bringing a disinfectant that is essentially stronger than alcohol-based options that we currently have inside the Peruvian market could provide benefits and speed up the recovery process from the pandemic. Next, please.
Well, about the shipment of the ELA 900, it starts at Environmental Industries' main factory located in Tallinn, Estonia, in which a DHL forwarder does the pickup of the machine to the airport of Tallinn, and then to the airport of Callao. Later, it passes through the Peruvian customs, and then is delivered to our main factory located in Ate, Lima. Also, it's important to mention that we use air shipment because it's more safe and practical, given that it's only one unit of this machine that we're importing. Next, please. About the main expenses of this shipment, first we have the price of the machine in euros, added to the packaging and handling in Estonia, which give us an equivalent of $9,600 for the export Tallinn. Then we add the international freight cost, which give us the SIP Callao, shown in the left table. Finally, we add the cost of the delivery at destination, which give us a DDP Callao of $14,855. About the charges incurred by the DHL forwarder for the international shipment, the right table shows us that both the charges at origin and destination. Next, please.
Forfeiting is the provision of minimum-term financial support for the import and export of capital goods. It is a mechanism where the export surrenders his rights to receive payment against the goods and services rendered to the importer. This exchange for a cash payment for a forfeited, which can be financial institutions, banks, insurance underwriters, or trading companies. As far as possible for forwards, we ensure that the buyer incurs charges involved in a forfeit transaction. Next one, please. For factoring is a financial service in which the business entity sells its bill receivables to a third party at a discount in order to raise funds. Factoring involves the selling of all the accounts receivable to an outside agency, such as an agency is called a factor. Next one, please. The financial leasing is an alternative way of financing whereby a licensed leasing company, which is named the lessor, it purchases an asset on behalf of its customer, which is the lessee, in return for a contractually agreed series of payments which usually include an element of interest. Next one, please. Okay, the standby letter of credit is a credit that protects a seller if a buyer doesn't pay for goods or services. When the buyer enters into a contract with a seller, it is an important part of their deal that the buyer makes payment after receiving goods and services from the seller. Sometimes the buyer can fail to make the payment due to the bankruptcy, political disturbances, shortage of cash flow, etc. The standby letter of credit comes as a rescue in such circumstances. Next one. Other instruments that can be used are the next one that we can see in the table. The first one is ECA, that is a support for domestic economy. The supply chain finance that makes managers can access to opportunities. The structured financing helps the big companies to deal with complex financing needs. The commodities financing help producers to complete their operations by ensuring cash flow. And the last two ones are the long-term financing that, well, helps in finance long-term projects. And the last one is Aval, that is a third party that adds to a debt obligation and ensures payment should be insured party default. Next one. Finally, the bill of exchange would be the other financial instrument we suggest. A bill of exchange is a written order used primarily in international trade. This one binds one party to pay a fixed sum of money to another party on demand at predetermined date. In this case, the drawer extends the bill to the drawee, who then signs and puts an official stamp on the instrument as a mark of acceptance. As a result of that, the bill transforms into a negotiable instrument ready to be traded in the market. Next one.
Financial derivatives. First, we have future contracts that are very similar in function to forward contracts. I will talk about forward contracts in a bit. However, with future contracts, the trade between participants is realized with organized exchanges. This type of financial derivative follows two obligations that minimizes the credit risk that is inherent to futures. First, we have the value of the future that is settled or received at the end of each trading day, reducing the performance period of the contract to a day and therefore minimizing the risk. Finally, we have that both parties are required to post a margin, which is an account where the daily gains and losses are added and extracted. This margin must remain above an agreed minimum amount between both participants. Next, we have synthetic options that are also known as trading positions, where a certain amount of securities or assets are held, and when taken all together, they can emulate another position. The payoff between the actual position and the emulated one should be identical. If not, an arbitrage opportunity could arise. These type of options are usually used to adjust already existing positions in the market. Next, we have forwards that are known as a contract between a customer and his bank for the purpose of buying or selling an asset at a specific price on a specific future date. The traded asset could be either a physical one or a financial one. However, forward contracts are not utilized for standardized products. Instead, they are used and tailored for specific user needs. The assets that fall under forward contracts are commodities, agricultural or physical, currencies, and interest rates. Next one, please. Now, options is a derivative instrument that can be used to speculate, invest, for hedging, and risk management. It's a contract between the buyer and the seller, both known as the holder and writer respectively, where the buyer has the right to buy or sell an asset to the seller or set option. In this scenario, the seller is obligated to comply under the terms of the contract. In other words, the contract dictates the rights and obligations of both the buyer and the seller respectively. The two main types of options are known as the call option, where you buy an asset, and the put option, where you want to sell an asset. Finally, we have the swaps. Swaps are known as an agreement to a future exchange of one asset with another. Currency swaps and interest rate swaps are usually the most common type of asset exchange, where two currencies of a type of interest or a type of interest exchange is traded with another one with pre-specified terms at a pre-specified date. Used as a way to manage risk, it's a cost-saving and flexible option for corporations, businesses, and banks. Next one, please. Now, the most convenient derivatives that we could use for our product are futures, forwards, and swaps. Both future and forward contracts could be used for hedging, providing gains with a short position so that the value of the asset does not depreciate over time, limiting and minimizing the risk in trade and in credit. The existence of the margin account during future contracts provides extra protections against any of these risks. Also, swaps are a very secure derivative that will be used for hedging. Although similar in application to a futures contract, swaps tends to involve multiple future exchange points. Next one, please.
Now, talking about the advantage and disadvantage of the different financial instruments, we have we're gonna mention the four more important that in the case of for trading, we have that the risk becomes very low in the case of the banks and of both exporter and exporter are involved. Then of other advantages that increase the liquidity. And disadvantage we have is the only main selected the currency are taken for trading as they have international liquidity, and also it is more expensive compared to the basic financing providing by banks and have a high financial cost. In the case of leasing, in the case of advantage, well, it is easy and fast to make the procedures, also have tax and cash flow benefits, and the total financial of what was acquired. In the case of disadvantages, the company can get into debt since the cost will increase due to the import process. In the case of ECA, the importer can defer payments in the short, medium, or long term, and it can reduce financial risk. In the case of disadvantage, this financial instrument can subject to government restrictions. And in the case of SBCL, using this, it will add credibility to the buyer offer and can help avoid upfront payment to the seller. Also, the buyer has greater certainty that will receive the goods or services described in the document. And as a disadvantage, we have that this financial instrument has a low protection in the event of default and jurisdiction discrepancies, and formal commercial record is not guaranteed. In the case of green financing alternatives, well, talking about the disinfectants, by definition, there are chemicals designed to destroy vegetative forms of harmful microorganisms. However, new technologies have made it possible to create ways to effectively kill pathogenic microbes by means that they are not harmful to the environment. And to finance this idea, we can use a green bonds that they are one of the more efficient capital markets instruments with climate change related projects example like this. And this is a debt security, which is different from conventional bonds by its purpose, that is finance green investment projects. Although the green bonds market is relatively young, and it is one of the fastest growing markets in the last few years. The other alternative is the environmental line of credit that is a fund that finance projects to improve levels of eco-efficiency in pymes. And these financial regulators, such as central banks, can motivate banks to provide environmental friendly projects with easier access to capital. This is an example of the Scotiabank in Peru that has developed an environmental line of credit that aims to promote sustainable production by helping small and medium-sized companies replace old equipment with a new and clean technology, thus providing environmental, social, and economic services. Bakeries and others may apply for the environmental line of credit. In the case of fintech, well, we have three different options. The first option is the business finance management. Well, it is a set of new tools that allow this business to focus on their growth and their purpose, instead of getting stuck of financial and accounting issues. We have the example of Alegra, that is an electronic invoice system for pymes that serves to reduce the time you spend billing by issuing your receipts to SUNAT. Also, the second alternative is a digital crowdfunder that empowers networks of people to collaborate on the creation of products, ideas, and the collection of funds. And it eliminates the need for intermediaries and significantly reduce costs for banks and crowdfunding. And finally, RoboAdvisor, that paid services with a low cost investment that allows our company does not need a financial advisor, since we only need to turn on the computer and inform about the risk tolerance objectives. So that RoboAdvisor will manage the money and it will be automated.
On the financial risk, there's the risk of changing the price of raw materials that the company needs to produce. Given that salt is an essential raw material for the production of hypochlorous acid, an unfavorable shift in its price can affect the projected cash flow of the company. To counterbalance this situation, the company can hedge using derivatives such as futures or forwards, using a futures contract to lock in the price of salt, regardless of what happens to the spot prices. There's also a liquidity risk when banks become unwilling to continue providing funding because of their own financial condition. And this happens when financial entities don't receive loan payments and the borrower fails to meet contractual obligations. So the bank becomes unable to provide funding to its customers. This includes our company, that we no longer have access to financial resources to cover the variable manufacturing costs and other expenses of working capital. This could be mitigated by looking for the bank with the best reputation, a bank that carries a review of the risk factors that they are exposed to. There's also political risk with risk of expropriation given the national security implications that the line of this business has to control the spread of the pandemic and the interest that the government may have to control our company, especially the price of the hypochlorous acid. There's also a risk in transportation. When importing a good such as expensive machinery, there's a risk that the product could suffer some damage in the transfer. No party will take responsibility, but the company has an insurance in order to mitigate this situation. Next one, please. About the most challenging parts of the whole process, well, the use of hedging instruments through future contracts has an important opportunity cost for the company, given that we can gain too little if the spot price ends up being much lower than the price at which was locked in. Also, there can be some misunderstandings about the output of the machine. So we as a company need to secure that what the ELA 900 generator produces is actually hypochlorous acid and no other kind of biocidal agent that we need other kinds of requirements to comply with the HESA. Next one, please.
Now, as for the conclusions of the project, out of the financial instruments mentioned previously, both leasing and the ECA provide the least amount of risk in comparison to the rest, while providing a substantial amount of benefits for our project. Also, using financial derivatives such as future contracts, forward contracts, and swaps for hedging provides help in the case of an unexpected shift in the prices of raw materials. However, following to the next conclusion, overdependence in financial derivatives for hedging could also run the risk of causing opportunity costs to the company due to the uncertain volatility of the spot price. Technological advancements in the process of creating disinfectants that are unable to damage the environment have made the ability of applying for green financial alternatives possible, and the machine output could end up being one of the most difficult risks to mitigate due to the possibility of misunderstanding and the specific requirements that must be met to actually produce and sell the resulting product. Next one, please. Now, as for recommendations, as stated previously, we do recommend to not overdepend on financial derivatives for hedging to avoid possible losses due to the spot price. This is a very specific recommendation in this case. We also recommend to apply to services such as fintechs for its benefits, like automatically informing and updating us about the risk tolerance, managing and creating low-cost portfolios, and saves us the time of contracting a financial advisor. However, we also recommend to consider the possible risk that could occur due to the use of financial tools like this one in long terms. Finally, we recommend to comply with all the regulations and specifications necessary for the production of our products, since an improper preparation of biocides could end up causing harm to humans, so that we can provide a high-quality product without worrying about unethical or dangerous practices. Thank you very much.